right, so Mathcore Index here. We're here with James Spence of Rolo Tomassi. Thank you so much for joining us, James.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, I know that you and Eva joined the band when you were both 13. How did the band originally get started, and what got you into extreme music?
So the band started, actually, Eva would have been 14, I would have been 15, I think, just to kind of like clear that up. We're brother and sister, we're not twins, there's like 18 months between us. I guess the first things that got me into heavy music, the first gig I ever went to was Muse. When they were touring Origin of Symmetry, this would have been back in like 2001 or 2002. Around 12 or 13 when I went to my first show. And I'd seen a video on MTV2, like a friend of mine, he had like cable TV at home. And there was just something about it that just like struck a chord with me. I was like, what is this? And it was the kind of thing that made me want to pick up guitar. And then I remember hearing like Blink-182 on the radio in the UK, like round about the time that Enema of the State came out, and like it was those two things. I was like, okay, I want to be able to play an instrument. Played a bit of piano, and like I'd learned guitar at school. I was kind of very actively encouraged by my parents to pursue music. Like my dad played music and was in bands when he was younger. But that was like, they're the two things that I remember that got me into like, let's just call it rock music as a blanket kind of term. From there, so at that Muse gig, there was a band called 100 Reasons, who were like a post-hardcore band from the UK. They had one really, really successful album, never did anything outside of England, with the exception of like maybe one European tour, and they went to Japan once. But like they sold hundreds of thousands of copies of their record in the UK. It's kind of wild, like looking back on that they didn't capitalize on any successes they were having. But you know, it's like pre-social media, it's a different time for music. They used to get compared to At the Drive-In, and it was basically, the only comparison is that their singer had an afro. They sound nothing alike. And this was at a time when it was like, you know, it's just dial-up internet. It's hard to find out about stuff. So I was buying so much print music, like magazines. And when I would like follow this band really, really intently, if I knew they were in a magazine, I would buy it. And this comparison kept coming up. So I was like, I've got to listen to this band. So I ended up buying an At the Drive-In CD, and that was just like, that was it. And it's just like that was the beginning of the rabbit hole of like finding everything out. And I was the kind of like obsessive music fan. Whenever an artist that I like got compared to something else, I would buy that and keep going. So At the Drive-In gets compared, like Thursday gets compared to At the Drive-In. That kind of opens me up to heavier sounding vocals. And then I was really lucky. There was a few really, really good music magazines at the time. But we had one particular called Rock Sound. They used to have cover mount CDs. And they were like really, really pushing a lot of heavier US artists that I had no access to otherwise. So like bands like Converge, and just a lot of artists. I mean, that magazine is not what it used to be now. But they were really, really pushing extreme music and kind of made a lot of this available to me. And I was just so like a sponge, just soaking in everything. Me and Eva actually did a band before this when we would have been like 12 and 14. It was like a pop punk band. There's nothing you can find on this musically. The tracks have never gone online.
Whatever, we're gonna find it.
Yeah, and they never will. So we'd played music.
Insta-doxing.
We'd played music together already, and we had really, really similar tastes. We went to shows with all of our friends. Like there was like a group of us that would go out together. So whenever I was buying stuff, she would like take my CDs, and obviously we kind of went off on our own tangents and stuff. But there was a load of artists that we kind of like bonded over, or there was like, you know, that point in the Venn diagram where it's like, this is what we both like. And then it kind of reached the point where she'd be listening to stuff and I'd be like, oh, you know, what's that? And we'd buy stuff and just trade. Like, I'm listening to this.
So you basically, zines sounds like they played a very important role in your discovering hardcore and like extreme music.
Totally. Zines, like message boards online. I had a friend that was like a year older than me at school as well, and he was just like even more obsessive about this kind of stuff than I was, and he turned me on to so much music, and like I would just kind of follow him around because he knew what he was talking about. He was so well read on everything, and if he said like, we're gonna go to see this show, I would just follow him there, you know. And like it was really cool. He ended up going to study in Leeds, which is like a 45-minute train ride from Sheffield. Like really strong DIY scene there, and that was kind of like my first exposure to that as something. Because prior to that, it's like, you know, I was paying like £10 to go to big like concerts that were booked by national promoters and artists that were in the mainstream, and then I had no idea of this kind of like sort of counterculture that came alongside with heavy music. And I remember he took me to a house show once. And
I was just going to say, there's something about a house show. You can go to Muse, but as soon as you go to a house show...
That was the thing, and it was the kind of thing, prior to that, I'd read about it happening, and I was like, this is the kind of thing that only happens in America. And like, you know, you read about it in zines and stuff, and it kind of creates this thing, and it's like, I didn't realize that people were doing that in England. And we went to one in Leeds, and he took me to it, and I was just like, oh my god, there is like something happening that I have just discovered, and it's the most amazing thing in the world, and I have to be part of this. And I think it's, you know, everyone's got those watershed moments like that, and that was one of them. I was like, you know, people like me made this happen.
Who did originally started Rolo Tomassi?
So it would have been me and our original guitarist, Joe. And then Eva was, at the time, so the very first iteration of the band, I was playing guitar and doing vocals, Eva was playing keys, and then the other 3 original members were doing their roles. And it reached a point where every band in our area had 2 guitarists, and we were like, we want to do something different. Eva wasn't and I don't think she would care that I would say this, she's not a very good keyboard player. And so I was like, well, I was going to switch to keys, and like, then she was like, well, let me try out for vocals kind of thing. But yeah, it would have been me and our original guitarist, Joe. Like, we'd played in a band before, and he was a like phenomenally talented musician, and we were all getting into really similar stuff at the same time. And then we knew the other 2 guys, they'd been in another band, they were like really good friends of ours from like, you know, like middle school, I guess is the equivalent here. Like we'd all been to, like we'd all been to school together since we were 4. Like that's how we'd known each other for that long. We were all the same age, all got into really similar stuff at the same time. And I think there was just a few bands that people heard, and it was like, I don't want to be in a pop punk emo band anymore. This is the music that we're going to make. And we were really lucky that Joe was like very, very proficient with a lot of classical and jazz styles. And so he was, you know, I'd be giving him stuff like Dillinger and all these other bands, and be like, oh, well, this is like kind of combining my classical training with something else that's kind of like, my parents aren't going to like it, and that's amazing. It's like that kind of thing. It's just, you know, and yeah, he was like a big driving force with like the creative side of it. And
he's since gone on to become a chemist, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So he left 2011. But yeah, I mean, he was a very brilliant musician, and he decided that, I mean, he's still playing in another band, but yeah, he wanted to do something else, and that's fine, because, you know, he'd been in the band for like 6 or 7 years, and it's really, really hard to keep 5 people committed to the same level.
So we're big fans of the Holy Roar Records output. How did the label discover you guys?
MySpace.
Christian and I drop MySpace a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's like one discussion that we have where we don't mention, oh, remember that band? It was on MySpace. You know,
it's like almost like MySpace bands. We categorize them in.
For real, like, and without that website as a tool as it was, we wouldn't have been able to do half the stuff we did. Like, we booked tours through it. We would used to post bulletins and say like, we have dates in these places, who can fill it? And it's how we met so many people that have been absolutely integral to our development. Like, Alex, who runs Holy Roar, sent us a message on MySpace, come and play a gig at my house. And this was before he'd set the label up. And then he moved to London, set the label up, and then we'd stayed in contact. It's like, we're doing this label, like, want to release an EP. And, you know, we met so many people, and, you know, people that have gone on to be really, really successful in music and just in life. And these are people, like, that were MySpace kids. And, yeah, it's kind of remarkable. I think we were exactly the right age to take advantage of that, and we're part of a generation.
You're part of that era for sure.
Exactly,
yeah.
You know, like,
I'll classify you as a MySpace era band.
Yeah, and I think so as well.
Speaking.
You know, at the time it was kind of like a dirty thing, but like looking back on it, it's kind of essential to everything that we've done.
Christian and I would basically describe the 2 bands you're with tonight, Arsonist and Number 12, to be that of
Same
MySpace
eras.
bands.
Yeah.
I've seen comments online. People are describing this as a MySpace reunion tour.
Right. It's like, is this 2005?
Exactly. Yeah.
We have no problem with that here at Mathcore Index.
We'd fully endorse it, as a matter of fact. Regression, 2019. Here we go.
It feels good.
We're going backwards. All right. So how did the split with Cutting Pink with Knives come about? Were they in your local scene, or?
No, so they were based in London, and I think eventually Alex, who runs Holy Roar, would be playing bass for them. And they were like, I put them on a few times in Sheffield, like when they were touring, at least once. And it was just something we got asked to do a split with them, and we're like, yeah, we played loads of shows with you guys, we like them, and we had stuff that was just there waiting to be released. And yeah, they were just around at the time. We would play a lot of the same bills, And I think
it makes sense considering you both have synthesizers.
I think so,
heavily.
yeah. And like at the time, we kind of like sought kinship with bands that did that.
Understandably so.
So like with Trencher as well, they're another UK band, like Casio Core, I think they were kind of billed as at the time.
You've been labeled as Nintendo Core in the past too.
Regrettably.
Cyber kind of thing going on, yeah.
You never listened to? Have you heard Trencher?
Maybe in passing.
Oh man, like they did the best recorded thing they did was they did like a radio session for BBC One with John Peel, and that like it's the best sounding recordings they've done. It's amazing. It's like a split record with a band called Esquilax, who again we did a load of stuff with at the time because they used keyboards, and I think there was like a small group of bands that kind of like shared some similar core aesthetics, and yeah, we just did shows together, and it made sense to do splits with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to ask now, since you mentioned it, how was the BBC split? How did that come about?
We were really fortunate to be invited to do sessions at Maida Vale in London on a couple of occasions, and we'd always wanted to do something with those recordings because, again, at the time, like some of these live sessions they sounded better than the studio stuff we were doing. We were recording on an incredible budget when we did an incredibly small budget, I should say, when we did the earlier EPs. And like Maida Vale, I mean, I'm not sure if it means anything to you guys out here. It's steeped in such insane history. Like the amount of bands that have like done sessions there, and like just the studio space itself is a really, really big deal. And it was really early on that kind of stuff happened. So I think, you know, 1 week, there was one of the two sessions that we did. The time that we went in, we walked in, and all the walls had been covered with something, because the Mars Volta had been in the week before and tagged the shit out of everything. So we're kind of looking at all this graffiti, being like, oh my god, like, you know, some of our absolute icons were here, and they were like, yeah, those guys like just caused so much trouble, like they were such a hassle. We're just like, you know, we're recording in the same room that they did something last week. That is like the coolest thing in the world. So I think eventually Holy Raw kind of, cause we tried to get quotes on how much it would cost us to license these recordings from the BBC, and like it was like really, really big, like 4-figure sums, which were just unaffordable for us. But then they kind of figured like a loophole around it if they joined a particular like label association thing, and then it became like actually affordable to do. And we just thought it was a really nice thing to do, because like we were really proud to have been asked to do those sessions and to kind of commemorate that with a release.
BBC.
Yeah,
that's
you know,
tremendous.
it looks amazing, like having the BBC logo on like a record stick, like, you know.
There's nothing more legitimizing, I'd say.
Yeah, completely, and I think it's that in itself was just a nice thing to do.
That must feel incredible. What was the scene like growing up where you were?
It was really, really strong in Sheffield. Like there was a really, really good DIY scene there, like a lot of maybe more like straight up like punk and hardcore. Like Sheffield had a really, really big straight edge scene for a while. And we were very fortunate being, so in Sheffield, we're about 45 minutes or an hour from...
Because there's no good weed out there, that's why.
Yeah, or at least I didn't know who was selling it at the time. But
That could be it.
yeah, but we were very close to Nottingham, Manchester and Leeds. I think that's the best thing about Sheffield, is its just position in the country. We're an hour from all of these places.
Very central then.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
I don't know
like
where
the
it is.
Midlands and the North, it's like kind of connects the two, and I think that was really, really good. So Sheffield, a lot of international bands would skip on playing Sheffield and they would go to Manchester or Leeds, which was great because that meant that we travelled and you meet people then who eventually would put your band on, or you kind of get like closer with bands that are local to that area and promoters there. So a lot of shows were happening. Like we met a lot of people at a really, really young age, and it was just easy to reach out to people then, and like to meet bands that you're going to do gig swaps with in different cities, which was kind of like really crucial early on.
You were playing Download Fest when you were, 20?
Yeah, the first time we did that, I would have been 19. I think we did it in 2007. So I think by that point, we had a booking agent then.
This is a nerdy question on my side of the one I was spacing out on earlier. So what age did you guys open for Jane's Addiction?
That was 2010. So I would have been 21.
How was that?
Surreal. Like, I mean, I spoke to someone about this recently. If I'm completely honest, like Jane's Addiction don't mean anything to me. Like, I know they're a big rock band, but like I'm not a fan of their music. I know, and
This is why I'm asking it.
Yeah, so the thing that was huge to me was that they had asked us, like that a band that big knew who we were. Because we were going to Australia anyway to be part of this like touring festival that's like similar to Warped or whatever, in that there's a big festival package, and then on the off days, bands will play club shows, so people that want to see those bands don't necessarily have to buy a ticket for a festival. So we got paired with Jane's because they apparently asked for us.
Wow.
And the big thing was, I mean, it was huge that we were going to Australia anyway, because it was the first time we'd done that. And then we had been invited to go and play like 1,500, 2,000 cap theatres with Jane's Addiction. And that was like mind-blowing that we were playing venues that big.
Wow. I mean, was that the first band that kind of brought you that large venue, or?
That year, we did that in February of 2010. And then we had like a really good run of like insane support slots that year. So we did Biffy Clyro, and like the London show for that was like 4,500 people. And then we did Enter Shikari that year as well, and the London show was in the same venue, like 5,000 people. So they were like the first like really, really big support shows that we got. And yeah, they're like really, really big venues like across the UK. Like prior to that, we'd been going out in like 250, like 500 cap rooms as a support band.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our first experience of playing really big shows. Or maybe, no, that's a lie actually. We'd been doing stuff with Gallows. So again, like that was like an insane opportunity. Just the experience of playing those big shows. I mean, a lot of the time it was going over people's heads, and people just weren't into it. But that's kind of just, you have to do that. Like
Extreme music.
yeah, for real. And you know, I think we came out of those experiences stronger, and it kind of taught us how to play on big stages at least.
So, in 2009, you performed at South by Southwest,
Yes.
and there you were discovered by Diplo. What was it like recording your second full-length album with him?
The whole thing was incredibly surreal. So we actually had no idea that he'd come to watch us. Apparently, he couldn't get into the venue we were playing, so he sat on some bins that were kind of like positioned. We were playing like an outdoor tent. And this is only what I've heard, and I'm not sure how much of these stories kind of get embellished, or how over time, because it was like nearly 10 years ago, I'm embellishing them myself. But I mean, it sounds better to say it like that. So this all came about. He name dropped us in an interview on Pitchfork. So we contacted our management contacted his management, and we thought like we'll get a remix out of this. And they asked us what we were doing for the next record. We were told that he had this window that we could potentially go and record something in. So we said yes, and then had 3 months to write an album to fit in with his schedule. So we wrote Cosmology over the summer of 2009, and then flew to LA, and it was just mad. Like the experiences that we'd had recording before that were, like I was saying earlier, you know, it was on an incredibly tight budget with people that we knew. So to fly to the other side of the world, to be somewhere for like, I think we were there for like a month, which again was like the longest amount of time we'd spent doing anything. I mean, I don't think we were recording that whole time. I think there was little breaks in that.
A week to set up drums and dial in tones.
Well, it's that kind of thing, yeah. But yeah, the whole thing was just really, really bizarre. Like, there was an engineer that was present, that did most of the tracking, a guy called Ariel Rekshade. He's since gone on, like, after he did that, he like won a Grammy for doing Vampire Weekend's, their second record, like Modern Vampires in the City, I think it was. And he did stuff with Adele and like Haim. I remember seeing this guy's name come up and being like, we recorded with him, like,
Amazing.
just stuff like little things like that, even over the years. And it's the one thing that most people want to talk to us about. It's like, how was that? Because it's bizarre. Because I think at the time, Diplo, he was like rapidly on the ascension. Like he was still like Pitchfork credible, if I can say that.
Yeah.
And I remember getting home and he was all of a sudden the face of BlackBerry. And like there was adverts in the UK for that, and I was to my mum like, that's the guy we recorded with.
And now you can't escape him. He's everywhere now.
For real.
Diplo's
like,
everywhere.
he was in like, you know, gossip magazines in the UK because he was dating Katy Perry for a little bit, and yeah, he's just like a global superstar. And I think
he likes metal too, apparently.
Well, this is the thing, and I think the whole thing for him was that metal was something he was really enthusiastic about. He'd never had the opportunity to do a metal record. He really liked what we were doing, and I think for him it was just another kind of tick on his CV. But that, as a thing, opened up so many doors. Like, the amount of interest that we had in our band following that was just insane. And like the year that followed that, like I was saying when we did like, you know, those big shows of Biffy Clyro and then Shikari and like huge UK festivals when we were playing big outdoor stages, it was all on the back of that. Because like, you know, we were like all of a sudden this really, really hot ticket that even though people didn't necessarily like what we were doing or get it, they were like, whoa, you know, if this really, really popular DJ thinks it's cool, then we're going to book them. So it kind of opened up a lot of doors.
I'd take it too.
Put us in front of a lot of people, and we were just kind of like taking it as it came. You know, it was wild.
That's amazing. So, what are some of your favorite albums this year?
Okay.
It doesn't have to be metal.
He's pulling out his phone, everybody. Shit.
Excellent. He was ready for this one.
Yeah, of course I was. I mean, I've got 1%, so let's see how quickly I can get through this. So very recent. I mean, this is going to be alphabetical order because I'm literally reading this from Apple Music. There's a band from Australia called Blind Girls. They put out an amazing record called Residue. It sounds like 90s screamo. So we played with them last time we were in Australia. They opened up the final show we did, and I was blown away by them. And I only very accidentally stumbled across the fact they'd put out a full length. Like I took a 7-inch home with me. It was very, very good. But this record's insane. Since that show, they have like a female vocalist now, and it's just amazing. Like if that's your bag, like you will love it. There's a Danish band called Cabal, C-A-B-A-L.
Two A's?
C-A-B-A-L. It's kind of like technical metalcore. Again, like we played with them in Copenhagen earlier this summer. Their live show is exceptional. At the
Copenhagen scene is exploding right now.
Oh, those guys, and then Mull, the band that Holy Roll put out, the t-shirt I'm wearing. That is another one of my favourite records this year. That's probably my
Conjurer.
So yeah,
Conjure on there.
Jawed by Mull is like my favourite heavy record of the year. Closely followed by the Conjurer album. Like that exceptional again. There's another UK band that we just took out with us some shows at home recently called Cassis, who again, if you're into screamo, you'll absolutely. It sounds like Ampere, like La Quiete. Like it's that kind of screamo. Like there's no one doing that like they are in the UK to my mind at the moment. And they recorded with Lewis, who did our last two records. What else? The new Cult Leader was really good. Like I really like that. Drug Church.
Drug Church. Word.
I've been seeing them everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a damn good name, first of all.
It's a great name for a band, and that record is fantastic. There's an Italian guy called Federico Albanese. He's kind of like contemporary classical music. And then, in that same vein, the new Oliver Arnold's record. You know that guy? He's an Icelandic composer.
So you're a fan of symphonic music, then, it seems.
Well, like contemporary classical stuff, yeah. So like pianists. There's another Nils Fromm is a German guy that I really, really like. He put out a new record this year. It's not my favorite of his, but there's a couple of really, really good songs in it. But yeah, my favorite album this year is Oliver Arnold's. It's the best show I've seen this year as well. So unbelievable. Like he's just really, really pushing the envelope with just
Do you
music.
want to say that one more time for our listeners?
Oliver Arnold's, and the album is called Member. So Remember.
For the listeners of Mathcore Index, this will be the part of the interview where everybody keeps backing up and going over what you just said. So yeah.
There's a few other things as well. I listen to like a lot of ambient and drone music. There's a guy called Ian William Craig, and his new album Threshold is really good. And then I listen to quite a lot of electronic music. And John Hopkins is an English producer. Put out a new album called Singularity that's fantastic. We saw his live show recently and it was absolutely mind-blowing. Really, really strong like audio-visual thing going on. The new Vane album was good as well. I like that.
Arizone's tight.
That's definitely one of the best albums of the year, for sure.
We're like in the middle of going through our best of for the year and everything. So
You know what? I've been refining my top 10 and it's all on my laptop. I think I've named most of it. I don't know if there's anything that wasn't there. But like I've been asked to supply it to a few different things. So over the last maybe like 6 weeks, I've kind of been adding and cutting and making sure I've listened to everything.
What are your thoughts on the new Daughters?
I really like it. It wouldn't make my top 10. I've heard... I've got tickets to see them play in London next year.
I was going to say, you see it live, you'll be changing your mind.
Yeah,
sir.
and that's what everyone that I've spoken to about it recently has said. I mean, yeah, I liked it. It's just... I think they occupy like a certain place in my heart, and Hellsongs is one of my top 10 albums of all time. I didn't want them to rewrite that, and I'm really, really glad they've done something incredibly different. but I think that wasn't the album that I want. Not necessarily say it wasn't the album that I wanted from Daughters. It's just that wasn't the kind
Would you
of
say
thing.
that you didn't get what you want?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's not what I wanted. In terms of like what I'm listening to right now, it's like I can appreciate that it's a good record, and I'm really excited to see it live because a lot of people said the record makes more sense. You can go back to it after that, and I think the way that they've incorporated the kind of electronic stuff and the keyboards, I want to see how it works with the older material as well. A friend of mine saw them play one of, I think it was St. Vitus shows, and he sent me a copy of the set list. Because I was just intrigued to see, like, hearing the new record, I was like, well, I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to make that work alongside the older material. And he said again, like, it makes complete sense. They're still playing stuff from Hell Songs. And as well, because, I mean, they never toured the self-titled record, or they at least didn't come to the UK with that. And there's a bunch of that I think is absolutely exceptional. Yes. That I really, really want to see. And I'm really happy that they've done something completely new and distanced themselves. Well, I mean, you know, over the course of, what is it, like 9 years between the records?
Yeah.
You know, I think that there's a parallel to be drawn between your two bands, actually, in that respect. You've both come a long way stylistically. There's a lot of progression from album to album. You guys have been embracing more of more atmospheric approach, you know.
And that's the thing, like, I'm glad that they didn't just rewrite the records that they've done, and they wanted the comeback, if you want, I'm doing air quotes there, to be about what they see Daughters in 2018 as, and I have absolutely nothing but respect for that.
Thank you for talking about another band so extensively. So, back to you. Time Will Die and Love Will Bury It is a massive album. It's unquestionably one of the best releases this year, and as of today, it holds a Metacritic rating of 92. I'm sure you're already aware of this, which is the second highest rating of 2018. How does that make you feel?
Proud, I think. Like, if I can actually say that. I was going to try and be like, really, oh yeah, no, like,
modest and everything.
I'm insanely proud of like the way that album was received, and it blows my mind that it, on something like that aggregates all these scores, that a band like ours that operates the way it does has scored higher critically than bands with huge budgets and huge marketing and press teams behind them, who like can effectively buy good reviews because they spend on advertising in magazines and stuff. And I think the fact that a bunch of people who have put so much passion into what we're doing can, like, not that kind of shit matters, but like I can still be proud of it and not be a dick, I think. That's what I'm going for with that. It's very, very strange, and I think the way that people just took to the record so quickly. I mean, like, when we finished it, I was pretty happy with it. Like, I thought it was okay. Like, but the thing for me was that, and I've said this before to other people, when we finished Grievances, I was so happy with that, and I felt like we'd written exactly the record that we'd tried to write, and I thought like it was going to help kind of take our band to the sort of the next step where we wanted to be at in terms of where we were able to travel and the kind of size of the venues we were playing at home. And it just didn't quite happen that way. So I think with this, when we kind of finished it, I was a little bit more just cautious about how I felt about it, because I didn't want to let myself get kind of carried away. Whereas with Grievances, I was like, I think we've made a brilliant album. Like, I think this is really, really cool, and I'm still really, really happy with that. But so with this one, I was like, I thought it was, I was really, really happy. We had a great time recording it, and I really, really enjoyed writing it. But it was more like, people didn't really take to the last record like I thought they would. So I'm just gonna wait, and we'll put it out, and then we'll see how it goes. And then all of a sudden, like, it just, like a blanket of really, really good reviews. All the UK tour shows on our tour sold out. Like, we were selling out shows in Europe in places we'd never sold out shows before, and it was like, hold on, like it feels like something's kind of happening. And there was just a lot of like really, really exciting moments really early on within the cycle for that. And I don't know, it just seems to have really, really struck a really strong chord, like emotionally, with a lot of people. And I'm not really sure what it is about it that people got with this that they didn't get with the last one, but I'm not going to complain about it. Like, I'm just going to let it be, and it's like, you can pre-plan and expect all these things, but sometimes it's just circumstance that takes you somewhere else. And that's kind of how it's felt with this, and it's been like a really, really fun ride touring it so far, and just seeing sort of the tangible response from how it's connecting with people live. Like, there was another thing as well, you know, the record had been out for like a matter of weeks, and we had people that at the front that were singing along every word to the tracks, and that's something that's never happened before. Like, we did a show in London recently. It was like the biggest show we've ever done domestically, and we played Aftermath like right at the end of the set. I could hear the crowd over Eva and the band. Like, that was insane, completely. Like, we'd never had that before. And I could honestly hear them over our monitors, and like it was loud on stage. Like, we play loud, and like just things like that. And it's just like feels like there's actual like tangible progress that's been made with this, and it's just really, really exciting. Like, and yeah.
So do you feel like it's because you had like a lot more leisure time to work on this last record?
I think so. I think there's a lot of things that kind of factored into it. I think one thing that definitely really helped. So we finished the record in September of 2017. So we had like a 6-month period between it being finished and it coming out, which meant that we could like make videos and really gradually release music and kind of get people excited about it. Whereas in the past we'd always been working to really tight deadlines. So it was like, here's a single and here's an album and we're gonna go on tour. So no one has any chance to like think about it or digest it.
So you were already sitting on that album for 6 months before you even got a chance to showcase a single.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, I think we started putting out music maybe the end of October. That was when the first single was put up, and I think just the way that we were able to gradually drip feed that and just get people excited about it really, really helped. I think it helped that we had like actually strong singles that we could pull from the record as well. I think in the past, you know, I wouldn't really ever consider us as a singles band, and I still think the format that suits us most is an album, and that to kind of get everything that we do, it has to be within the context of a record. But we were lucky with this that there were parts that we could pull from the album that made sense outside of the context of it as a long player. And yeah, there was just, I don't know, people just got behind it really, really early on. And you know, like, I think everyone was just in the right mood to really put everything they had into it. Like, we had a couple of really good tours before the record came out, like coming out here for the first time in December of last year, and we did a really fun tour, like supporting another band in Europe. And I think it helped people's perceptions of us that we were like active and doing stuff, and get them excited about something before it's happened.
The mood was right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on Brexit?
I am really, really, really scared about it. I think the worst thing about it is just the uncertainty that surrounds all of it. And it's been so difficult to follow because no one knows what's going to happen. I think as it stands, I mean, I think the best we can hope for at the moment is going to have another general election. I certainly think our Prime Minister is going to stand down at some point. But what's worrying is the two people that are probably in line to replace Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson are even fucking worse than she is. I think she's got a terrible job of having to try and deliver something that she was actually campaigning against. Like, she didn't want anything to do with it, and then she's had to kind of go through with it because it's the people's vote or whatever. And yeah, it really, really scares me. You know, as a person from that country that lives there, and as a musician that spends a lot of time traveling freely around Europe, I think it'll take generations to recover from it if it's going to happen. And it's something that, it's honestly just astonishing. But I think as it stands, like, there's a very realistic chance of a second vote. Just the way that it's going at the moment. It's like the country is like, the politics of the country is just in complete disarray. Like, it's kind of scary.
Yes, I can totally agree. What does the band have lined up for 2019?
We're going to start working on some new material. We have a few festivals booked in for the summer, and we're going to look to kind of take things a bit further afield.
You know, I've had a lot of requests, or a lot of people asking me, are you guys going to go to Australia again?
We're trying our absolute hardest to make that happen. We've been really lucky that we've been able to do it on the last 3 records that we've done, and we're just waiting for the right opportunity. It's something that we're actively pursuing. And I would say that
they're waiting for you.
Yeah. That's as honest as I can be about it. Like, we're trying to make Australia and Southeast Asia happen because we love touring in that part of the world. It's just working it out. I think certainly second half of 2019 is possible for going to Australia. I mean, we're going to start writing and see where it goes and what kind of happens. I've like some finished material already. I think Chris does as well.
You wouldn't be mad if it was 2020 when it came out.
Oh, I mean, there is no way that we're going to release an album next year. Like, yeah, we might record one next year, but we'll just see how it goes. Like, we have a new drummer playing with us at the moment. We really want to start writing music with him, and yeah, we're going to start work on that. Maybe I think when we get back from this, we'll give ourselves December off just to enjoy Christmas, and then we'll start working on stuff in January when we have a bit of downtime. Just because he's been playing with us since March, and I think he's really itching to start working on stuff, and we've been writing little bits all year, and I think it'll just be nice to give him the opportunity to put his stamp on being in this band.
So is this another new drummer? Was it the same guy who recorded on the album? Or?
So Tom Pitts, who recorded on Grievances and Time Will Die and Love Will Bury It, isn't playing with us anymore. He left just before we did the UK and the European like sort of release tour for it. We have a new drummer called Al Pott. He's been playing with us since then. He did that tour. Came in like 10 days before it started. He'd filled in for Nathan's old band Bronzeside. He's an old friend of Chris and Nathan's. They went to college together. They've known him for like 10 years. He's a Brighton guy, so he was in the area and he was available. And he has been like a driving force behind a lot of what we've been doing this year. Like his enthusiasm for everything is remarkable. He's a very, very talented drummer. Doesn't really come from like a metal or like math metal background or whatever. So I'm really, really excited to see what he can do. Like he plays like a lot of pop and kind of hip hop stuff. He changed like a bunch of Tom's parts. Like we actively encouraged that he did that. We wanted him to be comfortable with what he was playing, for him to put his own twist on it. I mean, you'll see what you think tonight. Like the way he plays certain things is just different, and he's incredibly good.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to have a fresh pair of eyes on the situation, right?
For sure, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna go home and start some work on that, I think, and just see how things go. Like, I'm not gonna put any pressure on anybody to write new music. We'll do what comes naturally. Like, and if it happens fast, it does. If it takes us a couple of years, then that's fine as well. But no, I'm happy with what I've written so far. Like, I kind of know to a point the kind of directions I want to push things in. But again, you know, I'm not the only person that writes music for this band. There are 4 other people that have a say in that. So I have to take what I've written to them and see what they think.
Right, exactly. Well, wonderful. James, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, gents. Thanks for having me.